The coin was a dull thing. Old Braavosi iron, worn smooth by centuries of passage from hand to hand. Yet when it slid across the polished cedar table, it rang like a fresh minted silver. No other sound stirred the mat's sanctum. Only the hush of incense creeping through slate-gray arches and the distant wash of canal water against mossy stone. The waif who accepted the coin lowered her gaze in ritual gratitude, though the gesture was needless. Gratitude was not among the many-faced god's requirements. Beside her, a tall man in plain wool leaned forward, candle flame dancing across eyes the color of wet sand. He spoke without throat clearing, in the Braavosi tongue first, then in the common speech at the patron's insistence. A name is offered. A life must end. The price is paid. Across from him, cloaked deep in indigo, the patron kept gloved fingers laced tight. A single candle cast shifting bars over a sigilled ring. Three-headed dragon, claws rubbed soft but still unmistakable to any with sense for Westerosi heraldry. The patron's voice, muffled in the hood's shadow, was hushed and cold. It must be swift, untraceable, and it must happen in Meereen. Swift is a matter of circumstance. The tall man replied. Untraceable is a matter of faith. As for Meereen, he allowed a fraction of a smile. All men must die there, the same as anywhere. The waif produced a parchment square, blank, but for a sigil drawn in rust-brown ink. A dragon twisted upon itself, devouring its tail. "Speak the name," she said. The patron hesitated only a heartbeat. Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen. The candle sputtered. Somewhere, almost inaudible beneath the sanctum's hush, a memory of wind moved through threads. The tall man closed his eyes, as though listening to something far off. A name more dangerous than most. Fire has many sanctuaries. Fire burns out. The patron answered. Even dragons grow cold. Later. How much later none could say. The assassin walked alone along an autumn quay where fisher lights bobbed like funeral lamps. The contract lay sealed beneath his rough-spun tunic, binding only by word and by the unshakable certainty that payment had already been made. In Braavos he had worn 100 faces. Sailor, spice broker, pale girl with a scarred lip, gently smiling potboy. In Meereen he would wear 1,000 more. Across the summer sea, Meereen baked in a furnace wind. Daylight bleached her pyramids to shimmering mirages. Night left them looming against indigo skies, torches smoldering crimson along ramparts, where unsullied kept vigil in rigid ranks. Dragons wheeled overhead, great smoking silhouettes that sent children scattering to alleys, and set slaves remembering older, sharper collars. In the Queen's Terrace, an airy chamber half-carved from sandstone, half-draped in silk, the Mother of Dragons stood with palms braced against a marble balustrade, her silver-gold hair coiled in braids that spoke of Dothraki steppes and Westerosi courts all at once. Beyond, the city glowed like a brazier, smoke drifting from the harpies' broken wings atop the great pyramid where once the old masters had hung the flayed bodies of the conquered. Storm season approaches. Sebaristan Selmy observed, voice soft as the breeze tugging at his white cloak. The harbors will close to deep-keel ships. They will wait, Daenerys said, or they will brave the storms. It is the same choice I faced when I sailed from Korth with only hope and half a map. Selmy cleared his throat. Hope carried you further than any galley, your grace. Yet storms can break even hope, if the hull is thin. She touched the carved mermaid at the railing's edge, feeling the stone's heat flow into her skin. Storms never frightened me, Sir Grandfather. Only cages. Below the balcony, petitioners lined the audience stare. Freedmen clutching cracked amphorae, city merchants in dyed linen, 3 slender priests of the yellow whale with powdered ostrich feather wigs. At their head, a boy knelt, arms trembling under the weight of a bronze brazier filled with apricots. The scent reached her, sweet, unclouded by ash, striking her with a pang of homesickness for fruits of the red waste and markets of Vis Tolaro. She swallowed and turned away, but not before a single apricot tumbled from the brazier and rolled across sandstone, leaving a sun-bright smear. Sir Barristan noticed her distraction. "Your Grace." "Nothing," she murmured. "Only memories." On a farther parapet, Tyrion Lannister leaned against a column carved in the shape of a serpent, biting its own tail. He drank watered wine, never more than 2 cups before midday, and listened to every word Daenerys exchanged with her White Knight. His mind, quick as summer lightning, measured each inflection, weighed each hesitation. Across the yard, Grey Worm drilled a phalanx of unsullied shields clashing in precise rhythm. The eunuch commander's gaze flicked toward the parapet, toward Tyrion, then slid away as though greased. Respect born of necessity, not affection. Tyrion tasted dust on the wind and thought of the whisper network that updated him nightly. Sons of the Harpy Blades resurfacing in the Green Market. Priests preaching subversion in gutter canticles. Sellsword captains whispering that the Queen would soon leave Meereen for Westeros. And now, rumors of a Braavosi merchant with uncanny eyes who had taken rooms near the Street of Spices, paying in coin that smelled faintly of iron and graves. Rumors killed as surely as daggers, Tyrion mused, if left unchallenged. The assassin came ashore at dusk, under the false name of Rollo Saurus, a Taroshi perfume merchant eager to peddle silver-stoppered vials at the Purple Bazaar. His hair was dyed a gentle heliotrope and scented with civet, his eyes hid behind smoked crystal lenses strapped with brass wire. A cutpurse tried for his purse moments after he discharged from the skiff. Rollo laughed softly and pressed a silver star into the urchin's palm rather than call the brazen guard. The urchin fled, uncertain whether he had just been blessed or cursed. In a shuttered room above the perfumed garden brothel, the assassin washed Taroshi dye from his hair, revealing a scalp shaved as smooth as melted glass. He smeared his skin with a salve of chalk and myrrh, altering the undertone from sun-touched olive to the pallor of a scholar who seldom stirred from libraries. A velvet roll disclosed its treasures upon the bed. 4 wigs in corkscrew curls, 2 sets of goat-hide gloves tinted with subtle inks, false fingernails carved from bone, a jar of powdered lead to hush facial lines. He chose none of these. Instead, he unfolded a plain robe of coarse cotton, the kind favored by Astapori sandherders, and slipped into sandals bound with hemp twine. When he descended to the brothel's courtyard, not even the madam recognized her early guest. The city at night was a confusion of fragrance and blood sting. Torch smoke tangled with spice market pepper and the iron tang of the sewage canals. He moved without aim, which was to say with perfect purpose, letting the stutter of traffic and the shifting patrols of unsullied outline the pulse of Meereen's new order. At the gate of the Ghost, he paused to watch 2 Sellswords argue beside their mule cart. A third man sat silent atop the crates, tall, pale, with eyes like wet sand. He neither blinked nor smiled when spoken to. The assassin drifted closer, as though idly curious. A spark leapt. The mule stamped. A box slipped, cracking open to spill black-veined obsidian arrowheads onto the cobbles. The silent man's hand shot out, snatching one mid-air with reflexes no Sellsword possessed. For an instant, the killer sensed recognition staring back at him. Predator to predator. Then the silent man nodded once and turned away, chalking the moment to fortune. Not fortune, the faceless man thought. A warning. Braavos's coins bought many knives, but not every knife belonged to Braavos. Someone else hunted in Meereen tonight. Inside the Great Pyramid, candlelight-licked walls where shadows of dragons seemed to writhe across frescoed battles. Daenerys gathered small council. Ser Barristan, Grey Worm, Missandei, Hisdar, Zolorak. Newly reinstated consigliere, representing wealthy Meereenese, and Tyrion. Long cushions lined a low basalt table carved in the shape of a harpy with broken wings. 2 seats remained empty. Dario Naharis, riding patrol south along the Skahazadon and Queen's Hand, absent these many months. Ser Jorah, still exiled. Discussion perched on the edge of civility. Hisdar pressed for reopening the fighting pits in full, claiming unrest would ease if the city's bloodlust found lawful vent. Grey Worm bristled. Spear-straight and silent until invited to speak, he answered Hisdar's every point with the dead calm of mathematics. Each reopened pit demanded 50 unsullied for security. Those 50 drew 30 from street patrols, and with patrols thin, the sons of the Harpy would strike. The city would burn its own throat to shriek at the sight of spilled blood. Tyrion turned his cup idly, amber wine sloshing. Cities do love their spectacles, but I have yet to meet a spectacle that ended when its architects wished it would. Hizdar's nostrils flared. A Lannister lectures us on restraint? A reformed Lannister, Tyrion corrected. And reform breeds tedious caution. Daenerys lifted a hand. Discussion stilled. The Harpy's wings are broken, but a wounded creature is most lethal. We will impose order, not by reopening wounds, but by closing them. Her gaze swept the table. Tomorrow, I ride the city. I will speak to the markets, the pits, the temples. Let them see their queen unafraid and resolute. Selmy's frown deepened. Your Grace, riding openly invites trust and daring. She met his worry with a stubborn spark. I am their queen, sir. I will not rule from shadows. Nenmerwan trot. Outside, a rising wind rattled shutters. The council broke, each to their tasks, leaving only Tyrion lingering at the table's end. He studied a map of patrol routes, tracing a finger down the purple-inked lines. Where shadows met light, so too did intent meet opportunity. The assassin woke before dawn to the hiss of dust against shutters. He drank black tea brewed with bitter orange peel to sharpen the blood, then knelt in silence until the sky ripened from violet to pink. His lodging overlooked the amphitheater of the pits of Daznak, its massive bronze gates still chained under the Queen's edict. Vendors in striped awnings were already erecting stalls, some for honeyed locusts, others for crimson banners showing the snarling Harpy. Soldiers passed in pairs, drifting like ghosts through morning heat. He marked patterns. Which alleys remained unguarded. How long each patrol took to circle. Where fresh timber propped cracked walls. Every city breathed. One only needed to learn its rhythm to see how lungs expanded, where arteries pulsed slow. By midday he assumed a new semblance. An itinerant scribe offering to pen letters for slaves who had no parchment nor coin for scribes. He sat up beside a well where freedmen queued with clay jugs. Few needed letters written. Fewer still had coin. But it mattered not. Words were windows. They told who awaited kin across the sea, who sought vengeance, who feared unseen punishments. He listened, wrote kindly, and accepted payment in rumor. A grizzled former pit fighter described a golden queen who would die within a moon's turn, cut down by her own freed slaves. A former master hissed that the sons had imported unseen killers from Lys, invisible as scorpions. A child carrying figs claimed the priestly Evenstar had prophesied a throne of blackened bone rising from Meereen's ashes. Each tale added pigment to the assassin's mental canvas. At dusk he shed the scribe's ink-stained fingers for a baker's dusty palms, then for a eunuch groom's silence in the dragon stables beneath the Great Pyramid. The grooms slept chained by choice, that the dragon's scent would mask their own when the beasts roamed. Amid straw and scorched stone he found stillness. He watched Rhaegal through a narrow grate, green scales darkening as twilight seeped into the city. The dragon's eyes mirrored guttering torch flame, seeming to watch him in turn. He lowered his gaze and whispered a prayer to the many-faced god. Not for deliverance, but for balance. Fire against water, life against life. That night, Grey Worm led 300 Unsullied on a silent sweep of the Copper District. Word had reached him of masked insurgents gathering near the Supplicant's Fountain, blades soaked in goat's blood to ward detection dogs. He moved like a whetstone through leather, decisive, unyielding. They found no insurgents, only empty alleys where once there had been warmth. But on returning they discovered a chalk mark on the barracks gate, a faceless mask drawn in a single unbroken stroke. Grey Worm rubbed it away, yet the line remained faintly visible, no matter how hard he scraped. He ordered the gate repainted before dawn. In the Queen's terrace, Missandei caught Daenerys' hand as the Queen retired. "Your Grace looks weary." "It is a good weariness," Dany replied, squeezing Missandei's fingers. A queen should feel her city in her bones. She glanced at the darkness beyond draped curtains. Somewhere distant a horn blew, low and mournful. Yet tonight, the city feels expectant. Nisande inclined her head. Storm season perhaps. I will bring honeyed milk to help your grace sleep. Daenerys smiled. You are kindness itself. She did not mention the dream that had woken her 3 nights running. A shadow without form stepping through flame, leaving no footprints where it passed. Each time she woke, the dragon within her seemed restless, as though scenting something its rider could not. Tyrion's night brought little rest. He convened with Varys' rag pickers, urchins with eyes too old for their faces, offering sugared figs in return for whispers. One spoke of a brave Ossi merchant who hired no guards, yet walked the wharf unmolested. Another claimed a strange pale man had purchased a littering hawk, only to snap its neck and study the spine's flexion. Tyrion's gut clenched. He penned an urgent note to Sir Barristan recommending triple watch upon the queen and posted it by runner. When the runner returned breathless, reporting that Selmy was already scouring the palace for threats, Tyrion felt no ease. He paced his balcony, wine forgotten, studying the constellations that glimmered above the shivering sea to the north. Westeros lay beneath those same stars. Casterly Rock, King's Landing, memories of court intrigue and betrayals layered upon betrayals. He shivered despite the heat. Assassination was a tool as old as any kingdom, and dragons were not proof against knives in the dark. In the pre-dawn hush, Meereen seemed to hold its breath. The harbor retreated from the shore in slow sighing waves. Lanterns burned low beneath the great bronze harpy. Its severed head, mounted on a spike, watched the city with dead bronze eyes. The assassin moved through vaulting corridors beneath the pyramid, storerooms where peppers from Yeti mingled with barrels of smoked dog, cisterns where cool water echoed and the scurry of pale crabs charted an alien geometry. He avoided guards without haste. The unsullied patrolled predictable routes, their devotion a map as clear as any topography. At an ironwood door he paused. Beyond lay the queen's private stables, where the white mare Silver awaited, and 3 bay coursers gifted by noble houses, desperate for royal favor. The assassin knelt, pressing ear to wood. Nothing but the slow breathing of horses and the fainter rasp of a groom's snore. He slid a sliver of sunglass, thin as a dragonfly's wing, between door and jamb, reflecting flickers of torchlight. The groom slept on the threshold, chained by ankle to a ring. Keys glimmered at his belt. The assassin withdrew a pin from his sleeve. A single flick, and the chain fell slack without a sound. He stepped over the sleeping eunuch, stirring only enough air to ruffle straw. Among bridles hung on pegs, he found what he sought. A saddlecloth recently returned from the dyers, dyed deepest purple, embroidered with 3 tiny crimson beads along its hem. Beads filled not with coral, but with a dust ground from the pale lilies of the Jade Sea, whose pollen induced paralysis of the lungs when inhaled. A servant of Hisdar Zo Lorak had delivered the cloth, claiming it a humble gift for the queen's mount, when next she rode through the markets. The assassin's fingers traced the beads. Too obvious, he judged. The many-faced god demanded elegance, not tawdry tricks. He palmed the saddlecloth and folded it under his arm. On silent feet he left the stables, locking the door behind him, leaving the groom unharmed, but murmuring unease in his dreaming. Dawn flared. Trumpets sounded from ramparts, heralding the queen's progress. Banners unfurled, black with red 3-headed dragons, stitched by freedwomen whose children watched wide-eyed from terraces. At the base of the pyramid, Daenerys mounted Silver wearing a riding cloak, the color of morning frost. Sir Barristan rode at her flank, white cloak trailing like a banner in its own right. Black worms, unsullied, picked for unwavering loyalty, formed a diamond around her, spears leveled outward. Tyrion, seated in an open palanquin, scanned the crowd. Faces blurred, too many to track. The air smelled of roasted goat, river mud, and something else. Oil? He frowned, searching for the source. Among the crowd, a vendor in purple robe raised a lacquered tray, apricots glistening under syrup. As the queen drew abreast, the vendor lifted one high, imploring her to taste. Daenerys reined in. smiling. Selmy's hand snapped up, gentle but firm, diverting her attention. "Your Grace, best not." A flick of his eyes to the vendor's trembling hand, to the faint purple stain on his cuff. The queen nodded once, regretful. She held up a gold token instead, flicking it with perfect grace. It arced, spinning sunlight, before the vendor, startled, snatched it from the air. Cheers swelled. Such generosity, such poise. Tyrion allowed himself a breath. Perhaps caution had prevailed. 50 yards onward, the assassin observed from a shadowed archway, wearing the guise of a scarred beggar hunched on a crutch. He had discarded the poisoned saddlecloth in a gutter canal. Crude plots belonged to other players. Instead, he watched how sunlight glimmered across polished spear points, how the queen's cloak fluttered, how Silver's hooves struck sparks from pavement. Every pulse of the procession imprinted itself, a heartbeat in the assassin's mind. Timing was all. Past midday, Daenerys halted at the Temple of Graces, where red-painted pillars rose like petrified flame. She dismounted. The priestess bowed low, forehead to flagstone. Incense drifted, hot and sweet. The queen entered to offer prayers for slaves still bound in Yunkai. Her retinue waited outside, except Grey Worm, who stationed himself by the entrance, spear butt planted. Within the temple gloom, braziers glowed dull as ember eyes. Cut jasper mosaics depicted Valyrian legions marching across kneeling Kiskari. As Daenerys knelt before the altar, a slab of obsidian quarried afar, she felt again that disquiet in her chest, as though the building itself breathed around her. She whispered, Valyrian prayers taught by her brother long ago, back when Viserys still dreamed of crowns. A footfall echoed behind her. She tensed but did not rise. Soft leather, not armored boot. Nisande perhaps. Yet the steps carried no hint of her translator's quick stride. "You come alone before gods not your own," a voice murmured. Accented but smooth. "Brave, or reckless." Daenerys turned. A man knelt 2 paces behind, bald, linen-clad, eyes downcast. A candlemaker, to judge by the beeswax lingering on his sleeves. She managed a calm smile. "The many-faced god has priests here too, candlemaker. Perhaps I should fear them instead." "The many-faced god needs no temples," he said, lifting his gaze. Sand-colored eyes met violet. In that instant, Daenerys felt a shock like winter water. Recognition of nothing. A face so perfectly unremarkable that it demanded remark. Before she could speak, he bowed deeply. "Forgive. I intruded on your prayers." He slipped sideways, vanishing between pillars before her guards appeared. Selmy rushed inside moments later. "Your Grace, forgive me." A beggar breached the cordon. "He is gone." "He was no beggar," she whispered. Night fell with a bruise-purple sky. Torches flared along the fighting pit's outer ring, though no games were scheduled. Tyrion stood with Hisdar inside the royal box, overseeing a rehearsal for tomorrow's harvest festival. Acrobats somersaulting, dancers draped in vines, singers practicing paeans to peace. All for show, Tyrion thought. Peace costs steel, not songs. He kept glancing at the black mouth of the tunnel through which beasts once surged. 2 unsullied guarded it, yet their spearheads drooped from weariness. Tyrion's unease deepened. He resolved to speak to the queen again, cancel tomorrow's ride, enforce curfew. As he departed, he passed a hooded figure conversing softly with a pit steward. The steward nodded, pointing toward a storeroom where festival props were stored. Tyrion slowed. Curiosity pricked. The hooded figure's stride was graceful, almost rehearsed. He followed at distance, ducking behind pillars. In the storeroom he spied the figure kneel before a crate, pry it open, retrieve something small, a vial. Then, swift as a cat, the figure rose and vanished through a side arch. Tyrion hurried to the crate. Within lay jars of whale oil for torches, coils of linen rope, and an empty slot where one jar had been. Whale oil burned hot and bright, and if mixed with certain powders, his mind raced. He clutched the stolen jar. A substitution? Heft indicated it was heavier than the others. He cracked the seal. A whiff of perfume? Cloying. Familiar. Sweet lemon blossom masking copper. He replaced the jar. Heart pounding. So, an explosion? A fire? Or something subtler? He must warn the queen, yet to accuse unknown shadows without proof risked emboldening them. He licked dry lips, tasting dust and fear. In a cellar beneath the old viaduct, the assassin lit a single tallow candle and set the jar upon a table scarred with old gamesters' marks. He poured a measure of fine green powder into the oil and stirred with a bronze needle until the mixture clouded, then cleared. With tweezers he unfolded a folded sheet of parchment, no larger than a thumb. On it, a symbol writ in invisible ink would bloom when touched by the mixture's fumes, a symbol recognizable only to those who owed the many-faced god a life. He closed the jar, sealing destiny. Tomorrow, when the queen addressed the harvest crowd from the wooden platform in the shaded square, a torch would be set upon braziers scented to honor local deities. One jar of oil would burn with unusual vigor. Flames would rise, parchment curl, ink reveal. The mark would be visible only for an instant, enough for a second knife, somewhere in the throng, to know the moment had come. He need not strike himself. The many-faced god used many hands. But he would be close, to see the debt paid. He lowered his head in prayer. In Bravos they prayed with coins, in Meereen with blood. North of the river, Grey Worm stood upon the roof of an unfinished barracks, watching moonlight pool in courtyard dust. He should be patrolling the warehouse district, yet something had drawn him here. An instinct older than training. Across the rooftops he spotted Barristan Selmy likewise standing sentinel atop the eastern watchtower. They exchanged distant nods. Below, in alley shadows, flickers of lanterns moved. Too many, too swift. Grey Worms signaled silently. Unsullied detachment emerged like silverfish, surrounding the alley. When they advanced, they found nothing but lanterns hung on strings, swaying. A taunt. He felt the city's heart racing. Wherever the enemy struck, it would be where everyone least expected. Daemon Blackfire once said that dragons plant no trees, they only char the field and reap black wheat. The thought came unbidden to Tyrion as he lay awake, staring at the tapestry of old Valeria hung across his chamber ceiling. He dreamt of wildfire erupting beneath the sept of Baelor, of green flames licking sky. But here the fire would be different. Braavosi subtlety, not Lannister spectacle. Sleep refused him. He rose, donned tunic and breeches, and slipped into the corridor. A lone torch snapped. Far below, he heard faint chanting. Temple rites, perhaps. He followed the sound, limping down spiral stairs meant for guards. At a gated arch, he halted. The chanting was clearer, melodic, sung in High Valyrian. He peered through bars. Two figures knelt before a candle. One wore simple gray, the other a gold-trimmed cloak that glistened like molten sunrise. Tyrion's breath caught. The gold-cloaked figure turned, and torchlight revealed Hisdar Zolorak's proud profile. The other figure raised his head, wet sand eyes. Tyrion recoiled. He grasped the bars, heart hammering. The assassin looked past Hisdar, straight into Tyrion's watching eye. Yet his expression did not shift. Instead he closed his own eyes, bowed and vanished into darkness, leaving Hisdar blinking in confusion before following. The dwarf sagged against cold iron. He had witnessed conspiracy, but of what pattern? He stumbled back up steps, urgent words forming. Dawn again. Outside the shaded square, throngs pressed shoulder to shoulder beneath canopies, strung with yellow silks. Musicians tuned zithers. Grain merchants displayed cut sheaves as offerings. On a raised wooden dais, flanked by braziers, stood the queen's carved lectern. Torches waited to be lit for the speech. Ser Barristan inspected the dais himself. His glance lingered on each jar of oil stacked by the brazier foot. He sniffed one, frowned, and ordered a taster. But the taster found nothing amiss. Whale oil, thick and dark. Barristan's frown did not ease. Tyrion arrived, breathless. He drew Selmy aside and murmured what he had seen. The old knight's face hardened. Hisdar. He deserted the palace an hour ago, Tyrion said. Claims he had festival duties. Selmy barked orders. Unsullied peeled from ranks to arrest Hisdar. Tyrion meanwhile slipped behind the dais, inspecting jars. His hand trembled as he unscrewed another lid. The same faint lemon scent. He replaced it and scanned the crowd for the hooded assassin. Too many faces. Daenerys approached, cloak rippling. Behind her, Missandei carried a scroll of edicts. Grey worms signaled all clear. Ser Barristan forced a smile. Torches were lit. Orange flame leapt high. Smoke curling. Tyrion felt sweat bead. He edged closer to the brazier. Smoke shifted, revealing a brief sigil blooming. A faceless mask in ink that darkened then charred away. His breath froze. Across the square, a young freedman shoved through the presses, eyes wide, mouth working. His hand plunged beneath tunic, blade glinting. A Sons of the Harpy mask hung half-hidden at his belt. Before Tyrion could shout, Silver reared. Daenerys' gaze snapped to the freedman. Selmy flung himself forward. Grey worm lunged. A crossbow bolt sang from nowhere, piercing the freedman's neck. He staggered, weapon clattering from numb fingers, then collapsed. Screams erupted. Chaos unfurled. In the swirl, Tyrion locked eyes with the assassin standing calm atop a merchant stall. The faceless man inclined his head once, respectful, then vanished into smoke. The queen, unharmed, stared at Tyrion. What happened? He swallowed. Someone paid a debt, and someone else canceled it. But Daenerys felt cold, remembering the temple voice. All men must die. One attempt thwarted did not quench destiny. The many-faced god was patient, and Meereen once again held its breath. Night's cloak draped the city anew, yet no one slept. In alleys, unsullied, marched double. In pyramids, candles burned to stumps beside wary counselors. And in a high-walled garden on the city's western edge, the assassin knelt before a still pool. He washed blood from his hands, blood not his own, spilled when the freedman's spasm had sprayed red into the air. A whisper of wind. The tall, silent man emerged from shadows, crossbow slung. They regarded each other over moonlit water. No words, no names. Only a nod, acknowledgement that tonight's ledger remained unsettled. Two predators loose in the same maze, each certain the other was ghost. Time would render one a shade indeed, the other a victor. Unless fate chose differently. In Meereen, at the crossroad of old empires, fate had many blades to spin. The assassin wrapped a fresh face around his bones and slipped into the streets, already plotting the next breath, the next heartbeat, the perfect moment when Fire Girl's dragon would sleep, and the dragon's queen would draw final breath without ever knowing the color of the eyes that delivered her to the many-faced god. Beyond, bells tolled dawn's promise, though dawn lay hours distant. Flames licked unseen beneath whale oil jars stacked for tomorrow's feast. And high above, Rhaegel circled the pyramid, scales glinting green-gold in torchlight, as though sensing that the air itself had begun to bleed. Indao, Pow-ng. Smoke clung to Meereen like a veil that would not lift. The aftertaste of panic settled into every courtyard and corner market. In the pyramid's highest chambers, the harps of the Graces had fallen silent, as though even music feared to tempt whatever watchful spirit had spared its queen only hours before. Guards doubled at every arch, unsleeping, unsullied paced ramparts in unbroken rings of steel. Yet beneath those visible preparations, other lines were drawn. Lines of trust and of dread, faint as spider silk and twice as treacherous. Tyrion Lannister did not sleep. He prowled the length of his receiving room until dawn. Parchments littered the desk, maps of the city layered with fresh notations in green and red ink. Points where torches burned unusually hot, stalls where coin flowed faster than goods, alleys too clean of foot traffic. Through the open shutter he watched dawn purple to rose, every rising hue reminding him that each day offered a new turn of the knife. At the 4th hour he summoned Missandei with a tap of a bell. She arrived with her tablet pressed to her chest, curls tucked behind smart ears. Tyrion gestured her to a seat. "Information is oil," he said without preamble. "Too little, the machine seizes. Too much, it burns down around us." She studied the scroll. You believe more attempts will come. If I were the Faceless men, I would. They're not paid to fail. A line creased her brow. We cannot predict every shadow. No, he agreed. But we can dim some. I need purchase ledgers from the Purple Bazaar. Everything involving whale oil and lemon perfumes over the last fortnight. And summons for every steward who serves Hisdar Zo Lorak. Wake them, sweetly if you can. Less sweetly if they balk. Nisande nodded. I will begin now. When she had gone, Tyrion downed a mouthful of cold tea, sweetened with honey, yet bitter on his tongue. He turned as sandals whispered beyond the arch. Ser Barristan emerged, his white cloak dulled by candle smoke. Eyes rimmed with sleepless red. Good sir, Tyrion said. I trust you've arrested Hisdar by now. A dozen of his household. Hisdar himself slipped us. Selmy's voice held a rigid edge. But we found evidence. The pit steward bribed to swap the oil jar and 3 letters in Valyrian tongue, each sealed but unaddressed. Their content reads only, the dragon must be caged. The moth must emerge. Tyrion rubbed his beard. Moths emerge when flames are brightest. He met Selmy's weary gaze. Do you think Hisdar acts alone? No. The knight crossed to the balcony, watching the first patrols march across the plaza below. But nor do I think he trusts his allies. A man conspiring with murder does not leave riddles unless he fears his co-conspirators. Or unless he is bait, Tyrion murmured. A decoy for something larger. He poured a second cup, offered it. Selmy refused with a curt wave, then surprised Tyrion by leaning heavy on the balustrade. I am too old for more war, Selmy said softly. I traded one mad king for one just queen, yet the blades are the same, only the hands change. Hands matter, Tyrion said. Our business is to find whose hands still clutch a dagger. A horn blared in the distance. The first call of the morning court. Selmy straightened. The queen rides at midday, the knight reminded. Tyrion snorted. Does she? Truly. Hair people demand her presence. She will not show fear. Now. Inshan. Showing fear is forgivable, Tyrion replied, so long as it's accompanied by enough spines to form a crown. But dying is less forgivable. Selmy's jaw tightened. I will not allow it. Then see that you don't. Tyrion raised the cup in wry salute. And bring me any man who trades in apricots. I've lost my taste for them. Grey Worm knelt before a low table in his quarters, the spear laid across his thighs. The unsullied commander had rarely known doubt. Training had carved it from him along with mercy and desire. Yet the chalk mark on the gate, scrubbed again that dawn and still faintly visible, needled him. Symbols mattered. A faceless mask was more than insolence. It was prophecy. He touched the spearhead, tracing the edge. Its steel was polished to mirror brightness, but now a shadow seemed to linger along the blade. A whisper of coming blood. He whispered a vow to the Giscar sun gods he no longer served. Then a second vow to the Valyrian dragons who had broken his chains. Both vows ended the same. Protect the queen. At a rap upon his doorframe he rose. Nisande stepped inside, her bearing brisk. Commander. The hand requests ledgers and witness roster. We must find oil traders. Grey Worm inclined his head. I will gather patrol reports. Unsullied at the bazaar watch each stall. He hesitated. Tell the hand. Whoever hunts, we hunt them back. Nisande's expression softened. Your men saved the queen yesterday. Grey Worm did not smile. Saving is not enough. The knife still hovers. We must break it. They parted. Grey Worm strode for the barracks yard where his lieutenants waited in ranks. Orders rattled crisp as shield beats. Patrols would triple. Plainclothes scouts would infiltrate warehouses. Every alley would taste unsullied iron. Yet somewhere he sensed the silent figure with wet sand eyes already riding the city's night winds, beyond reach of any formation. Beneath the perfumed garden brothel, in a cell that had once been a cold store for rare wines, the faceless man attended a council few in Meereen would ever see. 5 men and 1 woman gathered around a low brazier. A pit steward in sweat-stained linen, a cell-sail captain wearing rings through both eyebrows, a slender priest of the yellow whale whose eyelids were tattooed with stars, and 2 masked figures in copper harpy visors. The woman sat apart, quiet, sharp-boned, clad in black silk with crimson piping. Her voice, when it came, was cool as iced mulled wine. "You promised?" "Certainty," she said to the faceless man. "Instead you delivered spectacle." The assassin regarded her calmly, unhooded. His scalp shone in torch glow. "The contract is not void. The attempt failed, yes, but its purpose remains." One of the harpy masked conspirators slammed a fist upon the iron brazier, sending ash swirling. "We lost 2 good blades," he rasped. "And now, the city bristles like a hedgehog." "Yet bristling hedgehogs still sleep," the priest observed, voice aridly. "We need only wait for the twilight between breaths." The cell-sail captain clicked tongue against teeth. "Twilight comes dear. Extra coin, extra risk." The pit steward dabbed sweat. "Sons of the Harpy plan uprising 3 nights hence. Fires at the grain docks, riots near Temple of Graces. Better strike amid that chaos." "Da." The woman turned to the faceless man. "What say the many-faced god?" He answered, without flinch. "The many-faced god accepts second offerings, but demands more exacting devotion. We will strike not amidst chaos, but amidst stillness, because stillness is where hearts beat loudest." She folded thin hands. "Ain toin day." "Tomorrow night," the assassin said, keeping his voice level, "the Queen will conduct a private tour of the orphanage at the quiet shore, to calm unrest among freed children. Only a handful of guards know. She believes the place sacred." "Now," the harpy conspirator hissed. "How do you know this?" "I listen." The assassin touched his ear. "Every brick in Meereen has a voice. I have heard them all." Silence rippled across the council chamber. The priest played with a star carved from bone. The woman nodded eventually. "A quiet shore, you say? Poetic for an end." The cell-sail eyed her. "We still need escape. River gates close at dusk." "I provide escape," the assassin said. 2 tunnels run under the eastern bastion. Old Kaskari aqueducts. My agent controls the entrance. Kill the Queen, vanish into darkness. "And if dragons stir," the pit steward muttered. The faceless man showed a faint smile. "Dragons seldom wander the slums at night. They prefer high air, unless lured." A flicker in the woman's eyes, almost intrigue. "You propose bait?" "Lanterns filled with rendered sheep fat, dusted with saltpeter. They burn with a frequency dragons find alluring." The cell-sail whistled. "Yours is a large fishing net. A worthy catch." The assassin spread empty palms. "But if you fear, withdraw. I will finish alone." "Then?" Pride pricked them. None withdrew. Agreements were sealed with silent nods. The priest sprinkled powdered opal into the brazier. Flames surged blue, devouring ash. The council dispersed through hidden doors. Only the assassin remained, watching the embers fade. Heat licked his face, but his mind traveled elsewhere. To a courtyard of red pillars in Bravos. To a coin sliding across cedar. Promises carried weight. Fail twice, and the weight crushed the promise-bearer beneath it. Late morning sun stabbed through crimson banners flapping above the Great Pyramid. Daenerys sat her audience throne in a hall thronged by restless nobility and former slaves alike. Everything smelled of these winds. Sharp with sea salt, gritty with blown sand. 14 supplicants she endured with steel patience. Petitions for grain subsidies, accusations of horse theft, pleas for restitution after yesterday's panic. The 15th, a stooped crone in patched shawl, lifted a cloth bundle to the guards. Within lay a child's ragged sandal, stained brown at the heel. "My grandson, your grace," the crone croaked, crushed when the crowd rushed. "Please. Justice." "Menawindi." Silence thickened. Daenerys bent, took the sandal in both hands. Its leather was stiff, too small for any foot now. She swallowed hard. Sir Barristan stepped forward. "The Queen grieves for your loss, good mother. Compensation will be granted." "Compensation?" The crone's voice rose, cracked with sorrow. "Can coin mend bones buried? Can it fill a mother's arms?" Tyrion, present on the dais, saw tears spring at the edges of Daenerys' amethyst eyes. He moved to speak, but she raised a hand. "No," Daenerys said. "Coin cannot restore your grandson, nor can royal tears. Only time heals, and even time leaves scars." She rose, descending 3 steps to stand before the old woman. "I promise you this. We will learn from yesterday. Crowds will be guided, not herded. The sons of those who died will be honored in the royal fund. Your grandson's name will be inscribed among the martyrs who freed Meereen." "What name is that, your grace?" the crone whispered. Daenerys knelt so their eyes met. "Speak it, and it will be written." "Arnak," the crone said, voice trembling. "Arnak of the clay pits." "Arnak." Daenerys repeated. "Arnak of the clay pits." She pressed the sandal to her heart. "I will remember." Soft murmurs drifted across the hall. Some eyes glistened, some narrowed. Tyrion watched those narrowest ones. Compassion was armor and chink alike. It inspired loyalty, but it also invited arrows. After audience concluded, Daenerys retreated to a shaded alcove. Breath shallow. Tyrion joined her. "You handled that beautifully," he said. "Beautiful doesn't ease sorrow," she answered. "Yet I feel lighter, as if grief shared halves itself." "And danger doubles," Tyrion warned gently. "You show the city your heart. Hearts can be pierced." She exhaled. "If I hide, I rule nothing." She glanced toward Barristan, conversing with Grey Worm beyond tapestries. "We ride to the quiet shore tonight. That seems precipitous." She smiled faintly. "Precipitous is a Lannister word for necessary, is it not?" "I prefer the word prudent," he said. "And I prefer you alive." "So do I, imp." She whispered, and laid a hand upon his shoulder. Light, grateful, unyielding, the quiet shore orphanage perched on a promontory where river and sea murmured together. Once a pleasure house for Meereenese nobles, its marble colonnades now framed children's gardens, patched with rows of bitter leaves and bell onions. Beyond abandoned black brick mansions, a half-collapsed lighthouse tilted like an old soldier leaning on memory. In mid-afternoon, the Faceless man arrived disguised as a spice broker delivering saffron cakes. He wore a half-mask carved of cedar, a fashion among Meereen's northern merchants, to ward germs from delicate nostrils. The matron accepted the fragrant parcels with gratitude. She did not notice the thin glass vials nestled inside the same crate, equal in number to the cakes. While the matron shepherded children to the courtyard, he roamed the corridors, measuring step counts, noting door jams. He paused at a cracked cistern wall where a faint draft seeped through mortar. A hollow behind stone? He pressed his ear. The hush of a subterranean cavity. Perfect. From a satchel, he produced a pouch of flicker dust, an alchemical compound that when burned released smoke invisible to human eyes yet maddening to a dragon's olfactory nerves. He sprinkled dust into the cistern cavity and resealed the patch with a dab of gum made from fig sap. Going. At dusk, a single candle would be enough to set the dust smoldering for hours. Children's laughter drifted. He left the orphanage without a backward glance, a smell of saffron lingering in the halls. As the sun slid behind Meereen's jagged skyline, an unseasonable cool descended. Torches guttered in drafting breezes, and markets wound down early. Rumors of last night's failed killing whispered in doorways. Some claimed the freedman assassin had been Grey Worm in disguise. Others insisted the queen herself had turned into a dragon and melted the blade. Each telling grew wilder. Deep in the silken streets, Hizdar Zolorak hurried under a plain cloak, flanked by 2 mercenaries. His breathing rasped. Sweat glued tunic to spine despite the chill. At a shuttered tea house he paused, giving the secret knock. The doorway cracked. A hooded figure beckoned. Hisdar ducked inside. The room was small, lamp-lit. The priest of the Yellow Whale waited at a table, sipping pale liqueur. Two others in harpy masks stood guard. Hisdar yanked back his hood. "You summoned me." The priest smiled. "We worry for you, honored Hisdar. The unsullied search. They may reach even these walls." "I never signed my name," Hisdar hissed. "Nothing links me to that oil. Nevertheless, caution." The priest produced a scroll. "A ship lies at anchor off the old wharf. Holds destined for Volantis. Passage purchased. Crew discreet. Leave tonight. Besamero." Hisdar eyed the parchment. "I am no traitor. Meereen needs natives at the helm when the dragon bitch falls." The priest's smile widened. "Indeed. And someone must survive her fall for the city to crown." He slid the scroll closer. "Live to lead, Lord Hisdar." Hisdar's hand shook as he accepted. Outside, a bell tolled the 7th hour. The priest hummed along, tuneless, as though to the rhythm of an altogether different countdown. Unbeknownst to them, in an alcove overhead, a shadow peeled from the wall. The silent crossbowman, the same who had felled the freedman yesterday, listened through a cracked tile. He carried no crossbow tonight. Instead, his hands held slender wax tablets impressed with Braavosi cipher. He memorized every word, then slipped into the roof beams, vanishing. Back at the pyramid, Tyrion and Ser Barristan suited for night travel. Muted browns, breastplates light enough for speed. Daenerys met them in a hooded mantle, silver hair coiled but hidden. Missandei joined with a satchel of fresh bread and pomegranates for the children. The retinue would be small, 20 unsullied, Barristan, Grey Worm, and 2 hand-picked scouts from the Second Sons, presently under Dario's deputy command. "Your Grace," Barristan began. "Ride in the center. Unsullied shield you always." "I remember," she said, mounting Silver. Tyrion swung onto a stocky gelding. "If we encounter trouble, stay behind Selmy. Old men make fine arrow catchers." Selmy snorted. "Some old men still swing swords, MP." Tyrion grinned. Yet tension thrummed beneath his jest. He had not told Daenerys of the saffron cakes or the vials. No proof yet linked them. But doubt gnawed each breath. They left the pyramid by the East Sally port. Hooves clopping through narrow streets walled by shuttered shops. Children peered from balconies, whispering the Queen's name. Somewhere distant, a drumbeat pulsed, rebellious yet lawless. Halfway to the orphanage, Grey Worm signaled halt. Ahead, the lantern archway loomed. A stone bridge over a dry canal. 2 street fires burned in iron basins, unattended. Grey Worm gestured. Scouts advanced, blades bared. They returned moments later, shaking heads. Safe. The company crossed. Had they looked up, they might have spied a figure crouched upon the arch keystone, charcoal cloak rippling. The faceless man watched their lanterns recede, gauging pace. He marked the interval to the quiet shore, then slid down the far side, gliding through threads. Children's voices greeted the company at the orphanage gate, delighted squeals as they recognized Silver's pale mane and torchlight. The matron bowed low, tears shining. Small hands tugged at Daenerys' cloak. She knelt, laughing, letting them braid loose strands of her hair with river reeds. Missandei distributed pomegranates, juice-stained little fingers red like war paint. Tyrion conjured a copper coin from behind a girl's ear, earning gasps. In the courtyard, the Unsullied fanned out, Grey Worm patrolling the perimeter. Barristan took station beneath an arch. Stars wheeled overhead, clear and pale. Inside, Daenerys followed the matron through colonnades. Dormitory nooks lined each side, filled with fresh rushes and woolen blankets. The Queen praised the orderliness, the matron glowed. Yet as they neared the old cistern chamber, Daenerys paused. A prickle at the back of her neck. Smell of something acrid beneath saffron. She touched the wall. Stone warm, faint tremor, as if a low hum throbbed within. She cocked her head. The matron, noticing her stillness, asked gently, "Is something wrong, Your Grace?" "Only a feeling." Daenerys' violet eyes narrowed. At that moment, outside, a shrill whistle pierced the night. Unsullied signal for intruders. Grey Worm's shout echoed. Torchfire flared along the perimeter. Children shrieked. Barristan raced into the courtyard, sword drawn. Tyrion emerged from the refectory, breath hitching. He saw shadows scaling the boundary wall. Figures in bleached linen with copper masks. Sons of the Harpy. But more concerning, among them, a hooded silhouette moved faster, slipping through chaos toward the cistern wing. "Barristan!" Tyrion yelled. Inside, the old knight pivoted, spied the intruder, sprinted. Tyrion drew his dagger. Small comfort. And chased. Within the cistern hall, the faceless man knelt by the patched mortar, flint in hand. One strike would light the candle, begin the smoke. He frowned. Something off. The stone warmer than before. Vibrations irregular. He hesitated. The contract required certainty. Uncertainty invited failure. Footsteps hammered behind. Without rising, he flung the flint. The spark vanished into darkness. He turned as Ser Barristan burst in, white cloak streaming. Longsword whistling through air. Steel met emerging dagger. Sparks sprayed. The assassin slid aside, parried, glided under a second cut, moving like a dancer on oiled glass. Barristan pressed. His strokes were textbook perfect, yet the faceless man flowed around each. Tyrion leaned against the doorway, lungs burning. He could do nothing but watch the dance of blade and shadow. Every slash that might end the assassin instead shaved empty air. Every riposte came within a whisper of the old knight's throat, but halted short, measured. The assassin was studying Barristan, Tyrion realized, measuring reach timing, drawing knowledge for a kill yet unattempted. Grey Worm barreled in. Spear, thrust straight and honest. The assassin retreated, feinted high, ducked low, vaulted over a bench. The candle forgotten. The bag of flints spilled across flagstones. Children's cries rose beyond the arch. Nisande shepherded them toward the stables. Unsullied clashed with Harpy rebels near the garden wall. Torchlight flickered, steel rang. Barristan advanced again. "Yield," he commanded. "You cannot win." The assassin's eyes glinted. "Winning is irrelevant. Only balance." He pivoted, sent a kick into Grey Worm's knee. Glancing blow, jarring but not crippling. Grey Worm struck back, butt of spear under chin. The assassin twisted, absorbed momentum, rolled across the floor, fetched up beside the cistern. Tyrion saw intention flash. The assassin's hand darted toward the candle stub. The flicker dust ready. He cursed, flung his dagger. It spun end over end, struck the candle, knocking it free. Wax skittered away under benches. The assassin's brows rose, a fleeting salute to the dwarf's aim. Then he vaulted through a side window, smashing lattice. Grey Worm followed but crashed into reinforced bars. The assassin had slipped between them like smoke. Barristan lowered sword. "Damn me," he breathed. Tyrion retrieved the fallen candle, snuffing its faint ember. If one spark had touched that dust. He shivered. Grey Worm knelt, finger tracing spilled flicker dust. "What is this?" "Dragon lure," Tyrion guessed. "Or worse." He straightened. "We must secure the city's rooftops. Dragons cannot lead this dance." Barristan nodded. "The queen?" Tyrion glanced beyond the arch. Daenerys emerged, flanked by unsullied, unharmed, but pale. Children clung to her skirt. Relief flooded him. Yet as their eyes met, Tyrion knew what he must tell her. The faceless men would not stop. And next time, their blade might not hesitate to kill more than balance. Daenerys approached, taking in the shattered lattice, the spilled dust, Barristan's bloody sleeve. "How many more nights of shadows must my city endure?" "As many as the shadows wish," Tyrion replied. "Unless we drag them into daylight. Then we will." She said, voice steel. "From this moment, no mask may cover face in Meereen. Anyone found hiding their visage forfeits freedom." Harsh, Tyrion said. But perhaps necessary. But not enough, Grey Worm added. We must hunt beyond city walls. If masks come from Bravos, we find their ships. Selmy wiped blade clean. And if the knives already live among us. Tyrion sheathed his dagger. Then we give them nowhere to hide. High above, on the half-collapsed lighthouse, the silent crossbowman watched the orphanage courtyard glow with torches, saw the masked intruders retreat into alleys chased by Unsullied. He did not raise bow. His commission was elsewhere. He withdrew the wax tablets, etched with Bravosi cipher, and stowed them in a leather tube. By dawn they would be in Grey Worm's hands or perhaps Selmy's. Whoever paid him had not specified which side the information must benefit, only that bloodshed continue long enough for tariffs on Hiscari grain to collapse, sending prices soaring in Old Volantis. Every war birthed profit somewhere. He stood, wind-tugging cloak. Far down coast, sails crept across moonlit water. The Volantine Galley Testament, due to dock by dawn, hold full of slave ink and eager whispers. He slipped down the lighthouse stairs, unseen. In the pyramid's council chamber, Dawn found Daenerys, Tyrion, Selmy, and Grey Worm bent over a marble table, littered with coins and markers. Nisande poured bitter black tea for each. The queen's eyes were rimmed red, her braid coming loose. She had not slept. Tyrion tapped a marker atop the orphanage miniature. 2 attempts in as many days. Both foiled, but not by chance. The assassin adjusted each time. Grey Worm's soldier's gaze was hard. We lock city. No one in or out. Selmy shook head. A siege upon ourselves breeds resentment. Daenerys sipped tea. Then we hunt the source. You say Bravos. Bravos has envoys. We summon them. Politically wise, Tyrion agreed. Public accusation may force them to disclaim involvement. And if they refuse? Selmy asked. Then we consider war. Daenerys said softly. Silence. War with Bravos, improbable, costly. Yet her eyes held steel. A runner entered, breath ragged. He knelt, offering a wax tube. Message, Commander Grey Worm, found at the lighthouse. Grey Worm unrolled the tablet, scanned the cipher. Nisande translated under breath. Hisdar Zolorak, plan escape tonight, Old Wharf. Priest of Yellow Whale commands treachery. Ounds tunnels under Eastern Bastion. Assassin will strike again upon Queen's next public appearance. Target dragons first. Tyrion's jaw clenched. Priest and Hisdar together. We must cut both heads. Grey Worm moved before anyone spoke. Unsullied sees Old Wharf. I lead team. Selmy touched sword hilt. I'll take the tunnels. Tyrion met Daenerys' eyes. And you? I visit the dragons, she said. They sense danger. They will not be caged while threats circle. Tyrion exhaled. Then let us hope dragons prove apt bodyguards. Dusk bled over the harbor when Hisdar Zolorak arrived at the Old Wharf. Warehouses loomed like tombstones, alleys silent but for creak of rigging. He hurried aboard the Testament via gangplank, clutching scroll. The Volantine captain, a brawny man with scarred lips, greeted him with a tight smile. Cabin ready, the captain said. Hisdar exhaled relief. We sail at once? Within the hour. The captain gestured forward. Wine first? In the shadow of the mainmast Hisdar followed. He did not see the spearheads glinting aboard the neighboring barge. Grey Worm watched through slitted eyes, unsullied poised. At his signal, 3 arrows whistled, pinning the gangplank. Hisdar spun as figures vaulted rail. Shields clanging. He bolted toward the aft, but Grey Worm intercepted, spear butt cracking ribs. Hisdar collapsed, wheezing. On the quay, Unsullied secured the gangplank. Herding sailors. Grey Worm knelt over Hisdar. For Arnak, the commander said quietly, and bound the lord's wrists. Far inland, the priest of the Yellow Whale descended stone steps into an echoing crypt beneath the Temple of Graces. In his arms, an amphora held oily residue of flicker dust. He set it beside a brazier shaped like a whale swallowing stars. From ash rebirth, he intoned. He reached for flint, then froze as a second echo joined his own. Soft step upon stone. The faceless man emerged, wearing the priest's face. His hand held a slim stiletto, slick with oil. The real priest stuttered. What treachery is this?" The assassin answered in the priest's own voice. "Balance." The blade slid clean, chest to heart. The priest fell, eyes wide, staring at himself. The assassin knelt, wiping dagger on gold-embroidered robe. Contract incomplete, but ledger shifting. Kill the priest. Remove unpredictable variables. Hisdar captured, Queen now forewarned. Yet the contract still stood. Daenerys Stormborn must die, but means must evolve. He turned to the amphora. Flicker dust remained, enough to lure dragons, if burned near their lair, saturating air. Dragons, enraged, might break free, wreak havoc. In the chaos, a single dart could finish the queen. He lifted the amphora, its weight like destiny in his arms. Deep within the pyramid's forge halls, Daenerys stood before wrought iron gates where Rhaegal and Viserion now roosted. She dismissed handlers. Alone, she approached the bars. "Zuldretsis," she whispered in High Valyrian. "Dracarys." Viserion's creamy head tilted, amber eyes reflecting torchlight. Rhaegal huffed smoke. "I feel your fear," she said. "Fire and blood, but also fear." She pressed palm to gate. Would freedom sate it? Rhaegal lashed tail, claws sparking on stone. Viserion stretched wings against iron. Their longing crackled through the bars. But something else too. Unrest. She removed a glove, pressed bare skin to steel. Heat pulsed back. Footsteps echoed behind. Tyrion arrived, carrying a lantern. "Your Grace, visitors." Two Braavosi envoys stepped from shadows, one stout in purple brocade, the other thin with parchment skin. They bowed. "Queen Daenerys," said the stout one in heavily accented common. "The Iron Bank sends regrets for turmoil. We claim knowledge of murders." Tyrion eyed them. "We never mentioned murder," he said mildly. The Braavosi's gaze flickered. Rumors cross seas. Daenerys stood tall. "Braavos harbors faceless men. Tell me, does the Iron Bank fund them against me?" The envoys exchanged glances. "The bank funds certainty." "Then lend me certainty," she said. "Swear no coin of yours paid for queenslaying." The thin envoy's voice emerged brittle as parchment. "We swear." Too swift. Tyrion saw it. "Your ledger shows debts owned by Yunkai finance houses." Lines may blur. The thin envoy's lips set. "The bank holds interests everywhere." Daenerys' gaze hardened. "If I fall, debts unpaid. Should that please your masters?" "Then?" "Dance." Silence hung. Dragons rumbled. Rhaegal's breath steamed through bars. Finally the stout envoy bowed. "We will inquire." "Do more," Daenerys commanded. "End it." They withdrew. Tyrion exhaled. Diplomacy by dragon glare. Effective. She turned back to Rhaegal. Thoughtful. "How many more plays must we read before curtain falls?" Tyrion asked. "Until the audience learns the cost of blood," she answered. But as they left, neither saw the amphora tucked in a niche above the stairs. Flicker dust slowly leaking aroma through a cracked seal, seeping into the forge halls. Midnight. Wall. The assassin crouched in a ventilation shaft overhead, watching dust swirl golden in lamplight. He had placed the amphora hours earlier, and now awaited its work. Dragons stirred restlessly. Wings beat iron with mounting fury. When their roars rose, Unsullied would panic. Handlers scatter. Amid confusion he would descend, wearing a handler's face, and guide Queen into death's reach. A subtle plan. Yet subtle plans hinge upon unnoticed variables. The first variable arrived in the form of a pair of small eyes. Not human. A rat sniffed the spilled dust, twitched whiskers, squeaked. It scurried toward a brazier, trailing powder across hot coals. A tiny ember bloomed. The assassin tensed as faint green flame licked. Flicker dust ignited. Smoke invisible to men but not to dragons. Rhaegal roared, smashing against bars. Iron screamed. Viserion joined, unleashing a gust of flame that blackened ceiling. Torches rattled. Alarm bells clanged. Unsullied stormed the corridor. The assassin swore in bravos, realizing events accelerated beyond schedule. He dropped from shaft, landing cat-soft behind a column. Ahead, soldiers battled heat, trying to douse fires. He slipped among them, cloak now charred gray like handler coats. A thunderclap. Iron bars buckled, hinge pins sheared. Rhaegal burst free, tail lashing bodies into walls. Viserion followed, wings unfurling with hurricane force. Fire rolled, liquid orange. Handlers fled. Soldiers screamed. The assassin, face smeared with soot, advanced through smoke. Flames curled but parted around him like dancers about a lead. He saw Daenerys appear at corridor's far end, Tyrion pulling at her arm. She broke free, running toward her dragons. Selmy and Grey Worm pursued. Perfect. The assassin drew his stiletto, coated in basilisk blood. Instant death. He positioned behind a toppled furnace, poised for the queen's dash between flames. He saw her silhouette, silver hair wild in heat wind, eyes shining. Dragons shrieked recognition. She raised hands, shouting Valyrian words that cracked like whips. Rhaegal froze mid-lunge, snarling smoke. Viserion snapped jaws but halted. The assassin stepped from cover. Steel flashed, and an arrow pierced his thigh. He jerked, stunned. The silent crossbowman emerged from balcony above, bowstring humming. A second bolt, buried in assassin's shoulder. He staggered, dropped knife. Poisoned edge clattered harmless. Daenerys whirled, saw two assassins, one opposing the other. Confusion flashed. Pain fogged the faceless man. Belial. D. He scanned, recognized the pale crossbowman. Wordless enmity. Grey Worm charged. Spear thrust. The assassin twisted, escaping fatal strike. But blood poured. He limped, leapt for a fallen hanging rope, swarmed upward with impossible agility despite wounds, disappearing into smoke-shrouded rafters. The crossbowman lowered bow, backing into shadows. Daenerys reached her dragons. She pressed palms to smoking scales. Words poured, a lullaby in Valyrian. Gradually the beast's frenzy subsided. Flames dwindled. Tyrion coughed through soot. Someone saved you. Against someone else. Enemies battling enemies, Selmy said grimly. We stand between. Grey Worm followed blood trail to wall, where a service passage dropped into darkness. The assassin was gone. Rhaegal rustled wings, eyes fixed upward where the assassin had vanished, as if memorizing a scent. The queen stroked his muzzle. Find him, she whispered. Find the shadow. The dragon's pupils narrowed to slits. A low rumble answered. Tyrion steadied her. We cannot let dragons loose in the streets. We may not have choice, she said. But night is not yet spent. On a rooftop overlooking the river gate, the faceless man collapsed. Arrows throbbed in meat. Blood pooled beneath robes. He pressed cloth, slowing leak. The many-faced god accepts any face. He reminded himself, even mine. But not yet. Contract. He prized arrow from thigh. White pain. From shoulder, black haze. He cauterized with a heated coin, fainting twice. When breath steadied, he drank an elixir of poppy and basil root, dulling agony. Cross tiles, the silent crossbowman appeared, stepping from darkness as though conjured. Bow unstrung, hands empty. The assassin rose weakly, dagger raised. No, the crossbowman said, voice sand rough. I intervene because chaos suits my purse. Your death subtracts spice. The assassin's grip trembled. You cost me. You fail yourself. The crossbowman knelt, unrolled a kit, produced needle, thread. I patch wounds. You live, continued Chase. More coin will flow. He shrugged. Or refuse. Die. Contract ends. I find new storms. Suspicion warred with pragmatism. The assassin sheathed blade. The crossbowman stitched without tenderness. Each jab ignited spark behind eyes. When finished, he cut thread with teeth. Now we part. Queen still breathing. Dragons restless. Your move. He melted into night. The faceless man watched him go, everything tilting slightly. He forced lungs to steady. Failure bred adaptation. The queen's weakness was not her dragons nor her guards. It was her compassion. Her need to touch the world she ruled. Touch could transmit death. In 3 days, harvest feasts would resume, by her decree to banish fear. She would break bread before freedmen, taste their salt to show trust. Bread, salt. The assassin considered herbs that mask bitterness. Spores that paralyzed within heartbeats. Easy to slip into flour sacks. No blade needed, only the queen's own generosity. He rose, paying a distant bell. He had 3 days. Sunrise painted the sky above Meereen in scarlet ribbons, torch smoke lingering like afterkiss of ruin. Within the queen's terrace, Tyrion filled 2 cups with watered wine, scarce a drop remaining in the decanter. He offered one to Daenerys where she sat upon a low couch, hair singed at ends, gown streaked with dragon soot. She accepted, drank. How many dead? 8 unsullied, 3 handlers, 3 sons of the Harpy. 40 injured. Dragons unharmed? Tyrion sipped. Council meets in an hour. She stared out at rooftops glimmering in fresh light. Last night, a stranger's arrow spared my life. Yes, Tyrion said. Unpaid heroism is suspicious. Perhaps not heroism. She murmured. Perhaps rivalry. Rivalry we can use, he offered. Set them against each other. Feed false leads. Her lips curved. Weary. Schemes. I prefer the honesty of dragons. Honesty rarely subtle. Tyrion leaned back. But effective. Consider releasing Rhaegal and Viserion, under calculated terms. Let the city feel their gaze. It may deter masks, or drive them deeper, she said. She rose, pacing barefoot on cool marble. What would you advise, Hand? He swallowed. We keep you alive. Everything else negotiable. She halted before him. Then negotiate, imp, for in 3 days. I will lead the harvest feast. I will break bread with my people, and if death wishes my company, it can sit across the table and stare into my eyes. He knew the resolve in that voice. He bowed. We will set the table accordingly. Perhaps prepare a spare seat for the stranger. A ghost of a smile. Let us hope the stranger minds manners. They stood together, dawn washing over them. 2 figures framed against a city that had tasted death but not yet swallowed it. Behind, in the Dragon Forge, Rhaegal's distant roar rolled like thunder across the tiles, a reminder that fire ever slumbered, waiting for breath. And far below, in an unremarkable mill near the Purple Bazaar, sacks of flour waited delivery for the feast. Flour that by noon would carry a dusting of something far more lethal than spores of wheat. The faceless man labored unseen, humming an old Braavosi lullaby that spoke of coins and graves and the equal wages both bequeathed. 3 days, 3 moves, and then perhaps no more dawns for the mother of dragons. Okay. The flour sacks awaited in the millhouse like silent jurors, row on row of pale judges whose verdict would be delivered upon thousands of tongues. Dawn's first bleached light pried through warped shutters, catching motes that swirled in lazy eddies whenever the river breeze crept under the door. The faceless man lingered in that hush, back pressed to a pillar of cedar ribbed with powdery handprints. 2 nights before, he had slipped through this same doorway wearing the face of a gout-fat quartermaster. Tonight he wore the guise of a barefoot beggar, spine hunched, cheeks hollowed by shadow. Only the eyes remained unchanged, calm, unreadable, the color of sand still wet from retreating tide. He moved without stirring the dust. A ladle dipped into a leather pouch at his belt, lifting a pinch of spores so fine they vanished before thought could follow them. With a flick of wrist he scattered them over the open mouth of each sack. 5 heartbeats apart. 5 single grains of inevitability. The spores were a gift from distant Ashai. Invisible, tasteless at first bite. But once warmed in a human gut, they hatched a fever swift as wildfire and twice as relentless. The afflicted never bled. They simply stopped breathing, their lungs too swollen to plead for air. The assassin cinched each sack again, turned them upon their seams so that inspection would find cloth still tight, knots untampered. By noon, the Tri-Crest bakery wagons would fetch the flour. By afternoon, the dough would rise in royal kitchens. And by the feast's first course, the city would taste ash disguised as wheat. The queen herself would gesture for the largest loaf, her habit when feeding those she sought to comfort. When she broke the crust, crumbs would powder her lips like snow upon spring petals. And then the world would wait the precise span of 11 breaths before the Dragon Queen's violet eyes widened at a strangled swallow and closed upon a realm that never truly loved her. Done. He knelt beside a cracked clay jug, washed his hands in water that smelled faintly of river algae, and whispered a syllable known only to the dead. Nothing stirred in reply. Silence. Perfect. He rose, then paused. A tremor rippled through the floorboards, gentle as a cat's paw. It came again, stronger. A metallic ring beneath wood, as though iron had tapped iron in a precise tempo. He stepped back into the deeper dusk, eyes narrowing. Millstones should sleep at this hour. No miller dared work while city curfew held. Yet the tapping repeated 3 times, then ceased. A code perhaps, though not one he recognized. He folded into shadow, becoming stillness. From the loft ladder a figure descended, a girl child, or so the shape suggested. Narrow shoulders beneath coarse tunic, hair knotted beneath kerchief. She carried a crooked broom near as tall as herself. At the final rung she paused, listening, hearing only her own shallow breath. She crossed to the grain platform and began to sweep stray kernels into a wicker pan. She hummed under her breath, tuneless, flat. The assassin crouched behind grain sacks, studying. A child laborer smuggled past curfew. Risky, yet not unheard of when coin grew scarce. But her motions were too deliberate. Each step carried the weightless certainty of a dancer upon stage boards. And her humming, each note matched the rhythmic tap head heard, like a simple song disguised within an innocent shore. Either she carried a message, or she was the message. He felt the tug of warning, the itch between shoulders that called for retreat. But retreat risked unfinished art. Instead he slipped along the aisle, careful that the only sounds were those she herself made. When distance narrowed to an arm's length, he plucked one flower knot loose, pinched, and flung the dust at a mousehole. Enough to remind him it clung invisible even in lamplight. His hand found the wooden haft of a smock hook, more tool than weapon, yet lethal in a silent strike. The girl turned. They held one another's gaze across the pale drifts. Her eyes were the color of tea leaves rinsed too many times, yet bright, too knowing. She did not startle, did not gasp. Instead, she set broom aside, dipped a hand into apron pocket, drew forth a coin no larger than a fingernail. Old Bravosi iron, worn smooth. She balanced it on her thumb. The assassin's pulse slowed to measured beats. The waif, he realized, though wearing a new guise. Bravos had not relied upon a single knife after all. The house of black and white seldom wagered anything on one throw. She flicked the coin into the air. Its ring against stone echoed like a bell. That single note would suffice to call watchers waiting in unseen perches, perhaps at every mill gate. The assassin weighed outcomes with the quick exactitude of a gambler. Fight the waif and her unseen fellows, or abandon contract half served. Death by blade or by failure. Both unacceptable. Yet a third path glimmered, deeper shadow. The mill's ramp dropped to an undercellar, a labyrinth of foot-deep water where rats gnawed on rotting palings. Few dared descend there. Fewer still returned clean. He pivoted, melting behind stacks toward the hidden stair. Behind him the waif stooped, retrieved the coin without hurry, then swept her hand across flower knots, testing. Her nostrils flared at scent. None. But perhaps she felt the hush of something malignant. She called out in softly accented common, "We share a debt." Yours may yet be absolved if you yield." The assassin smiled, unseen. Yield was an unfamiliar tongue. He slipped through hatch and lowered into black water that closed over ankles like icy promise. Torches above brightened as loft watchers flooded in. Shouts echoed. He waited, treading softly until the far wall kissed fingertips. There he found the reed-screened drainage sluice he'd pried open nights ago. He sank beneath water, pulling himself along the submerged beam, letting the current draw him toward river mouth. When air returned, it tasted of salt and tar and the burnt sugar tang of fish oil lamps. He surfaced beneath a jetty where tide lapped at skeletal pilings. Overhead, gulls shrieked at the first pink of dawning day. Behind, the old mill rose quiet, but now lanterns bobbed inside, shapes moving. Too soon they would discover tainted sacks. The many-faced god weighed every scale. Sometimes the balance shifted between moments. But even discovery need not thwart intent. Perhaps they would dispose of flour by dumping it in refuse carts, selling to back-alley vendors. Perhaps they would burn it, sending spores skyward into city air. Death took many roads. He swam for deeper shadow, gripping mooring ropes one after another, guiding himself north along quays where early fishermen tethered skiffs. Every stroke flared pain in stitched thigh. His shoulder throbbed where the crossbowman's bolt had bitten. He allowed himself a single hiss, swore a mild oath to the stranger with bow. Still, debt between predators had grown. Tonight the silent archer bled brotherhood and betrayal in equal drafts. Footsteps pounded plank above, voices shouted. He ducked beneath a hauler just as torchlights scraped water. A fat sailor spat, cursed at rat, scuttling. No alarm. He drifted on into gloom. Beyond the third jetty, a half-sunken coracle listed against piles. He hauled himself into it, body shaking. The vessel stank of mold and eel slime. He lay supine, listening to hammering heart slow to thoughtful cadence. Failure, but perhaps not. The game moved, pieces changed. Another attempt. Cleverer. Quieter. A sip of tincture to dull pain. A glance skyward at seagulls tilting above flame-painted clouds. They reminded him of ghost-white sails he had known as a boy, before names, before faces. He closed eyes, trusting current to cradle him toward whichever bank fate decreed. Inside the Great Pyramid's western antechapel, Tyrion Lannister pinched bridge of his nose, while half a dozen stewards babbled separate apologies. The dawn summons had rousted them from straw mattresses. None could yet shape coherent sentences, let alone answers. He raised palm. "One at a time," he growled. "If your tongues wag together, none will speak sense." The eldest steward, a spindle-thin woman with charcoal brows, curtsied. "My lord, we oversee all grain delivered to Royal Bakery. Each sack sealed with dolphin twine. This morning the dolphin seal on 5 sacks was cut." She wrung gnarled fingers. Someone tampered. Tyrion exchanged look with Grey Worm standing stone-solid at door. "What alerted you?" The stewardess swallowed. "I smell, my lord." Faint bitterness beneath the wheat. Tyrion's mind raced. "Where are these sacks?" "On the terrace," she said. "We dared not move them further." "Show me." They crossed a mosaic hall and out onto wind-swept marble. 5 flour sacks waited under tarpaulin. Around them 4 unsullied stood sentinel. Tyrion lifted tarp corner. "Keep back," he warned. He knelt, untied first knot, inhaled gently. "Eat." A wisp of something else. Pepper? No. Earthy. Uncultured. He dipped fingertip, tasted dust. Immediately spat. Numbness tingled along tongue's edge. "Fetch Grand Maester's apprentice." He ordered the nearest guard. "And do not touch your eyes with those fingers. Commander Grey Worm, we need quarantined storage. Far side of palace courtyard, perhaps." "And?" Grey Worm nodded, speaking quietly to 2 lieutenants. Tyrion turned to stewardess. "How often is dolphin seal cut?" "Never, my lord." "And sacks come from?" "The old river mill on Broadwater." "The same mill that sells to orphanages?" "Yes, lord." Tyrion grimaced. Someone targeted the largest consumer. then planned to funnel leftovers into feast loaves. If we hadn't found them, he stood. Inform the queen at once. She must hear from me before rumors. Grey Worm gestured. We ride to mill. Tyrion sighed. Yes, but flames likely cleansed evidence already. Still, they had to confirm. They mounted in haste. Dawn's blush hardened to molten gold across flat rooftops. Market lanes smelled of cooling ashes. Sons of the Harpy banners had been ripped from alley corners overnight, leaving tatters like flayed skin. Citizens emerged cautiously, eyes haunted after dragon alarms of previous night. Among them, rumor burgeoned quick. Talk of queens' dragons breaking chains, of bakeries condemned, of priests found dead in temples. Fear fermented. As Tyrion and Grey Worm neared the mill, they saw smoke curling from chimneys, the hearth fires recently stoked. Two Braavosi envoys stood outside conversing with a guard captain, brows furrowed. When Tyrion hailed them, they turned with polite half-bows. Master Lannister, said the stout envoy. We inspect trade partner property. Flames inside, they claim rats knocked lantern. Rats with torches, Tyrion muttered. Grey Worm dismounted. Spear leveling. Open gate. The captain obeyed. Within, flour dust coated floorboards like fresh snow, but here and there blackened smears marked burn marks. Tyrion knelt, touched char, sniffed. Smelled of charred fungi, faint cinnamon. He straightened, scanning beams above. There, a crack in ceiling where daylight pierced, edges still smoking. Evidence of interior blaze quickly doused. Convenient. The Braavosi envoy dabbed brow with handkerchief. Fortunate the fire small. Too fortunate, Tyrion said. What cargo left before incident? None, the captain answered. Then where are the sacks destined for today's feast? Captain blinked. Sacks? Only one signed for pyramid. Tyrion cursed aloud. If assassin had wished to sabotage feast, he'd not risk all sacks. He'd taint only some, leave others clean. A miller might deliver half to palace, half to public bakeries. Those other sacks still roamed city. He turned to Grey Worm. Seal every bakery. No bread baked until my smelling dwarf nose approves each bag. Grey Worm's expression did not change, but his grip on spear tightened. City will hunger. Better hungry than dead. He stalked a horse. The Braavosi envoy called after. Master Lannister. Such disruptions harm commerce. Tyrion wheeled. Tell the Iron Bank they may deduct loss from their assassin's bill. He drove heels, galloping back toward Pyramid and its waiting council. The crossbowman stood upon the roof of Carthene's Silk Emporium, gaze fixed on Great Pyramid's highest balcony. Sunlight haloed the queen as she conferred with Missandei and Ser Barristan. Her hair looked newly trimmed where fire had singed. Wind teased silver strands free of ribbon. He chewed a stick of dried fig root, letting resin sharpen focus. His employers had wired fresh instructions via sand courier. Ensure Queen survives at least until Volantis Market completes short-selling contracts, placed against Giscari grain. Killing her too soon, they now reasoned, might stabilize Meereen under another ruler and thus restore grain value. But letting her live too long risked other factions burning harvest. Speculators liked a fine-tuned chaos, not utter ruin. So he must keep balance, protect Queen from certain killers, but never become champion. Act visible enough to encourage further bids by rivals, yet invisible enough that Queen never sought him out. Risky and paradoxical. He relished it. He unslung bowstring, waxed it. Below, acolytes of the pale mare disease cult chanted in alley. They predicted plague soon. He spat fig root, strung bow, sighted a long arrow shaft at a rooftop opposite. At 100 yards he pierced a clay jug balanced on chimney. A message. He remained present. In the swirling contest of blades, one arrow could tilt scales. He disassembled bow, collected spent shaft fragments. No trace. Then he disappeared between gables. Ghost of prophet. Daenerys Stormborn paced the throne veranda, skirts whispering across gold-flecked tiles. The city's air hung thick with suspicion. Each gust from river carried freight of rumor like sand in desert wind. She had sensed it even from balcony. The way conversations muted when she passed. How mothers ushered children indoors, though dragons now slept chained again. Last night's furnace mayhem had left visible scars, cracked arches, scorched frescoes, but intangible wounds cut deeper, the sense that her very presence drew calamity. Missandei approached. "Your Grace, the healers request your approval to distribute grain gruel to streets, to ease hunger while bakeries halted." "Of course," Daenerys said. "Use reserve millet and date cakes. Spare the wheat until safe." She turned toward horizon, eyes narrowing on a pall of haze rising above ships beached at Eastern Dock. "Is that smoke from the grain storehouses?" "No, Your Grace. Fish oil renderers," Missandei said, though her voice carried doubt. Daenerys inhaled, tasting brine and ash. The feast scheduled tomorrow felt suddenly like a noose. Yet, canceling would concede fear's victory. She would not bow. "Summon council," she ordered. Tyrion arrived breathless, cloak powdered white from mill dust. The council met in vaulted chamber. Grey Worm, Barristan, Missandei, already present. Daario Naharis had returned from river patrol, cloak splashed red with wine, but eyes bright. Tyrion slapped a parchment onto map table. Flour sacks laced with spore poison. "We intercepted 5. Unknown others circulated." Daario whistled. "Chef will be displeased." "It gets richer," Tyrion added. Mill burned intentionally to obscure evidence. Grey Worm laid parchment of his own. Interrogation report on captured mill foreman. Foreman paid by temple acolyte in coins minted Bravos. Barristan exhaled hard. "Then our enemy remains the same." Daenerys folded arms. "Not only enemy. Waif of house of black and white infiltrated mill. Attempted to confront other assassin. Their interests diverge." Tyrion blinked. "How do you?" "I walked the dream corridors last night," she said softly. "Through Drogon's eyes. I saw the girl. Dreams reveal what daylight hides." Silence pooled. "Dreams guided Targaryens once." Tyrion rubbed beard, uncertain where pragmatism met prophecy. "Feast stands," she declared. "But bread will be milled within pyramid under unsullied guard. Water drawn from cistern sealed by me alone. And before I eat, each dish passes to Regal." Missandei frowned. "Your Grace, risk dragon's death." "Dragons immune to plagues of man," Daenerys said. "Fire purges." Tyrion tilted head. "Perhaps, but assassins adjust. They may shift from unseen poison to open blade again." Daario grinned, fingers drumming dagger pommel. "Let them. We'll ring Daeus with second sons." A storm of steel. "Then no." Grey Worm's voice cut, cold. "No sellsword stands nearer queen than unsullied." Tension flared. Barristan stepped between. "Enough. This is war council, not cock measure." Daenerys quelled them with glance. "Both forces will guard. Grey Worm inner cordon. Second sons outer with city watch." She turned to Tyrion. "You will oversee kitchens. Trust none. Flour dust still clings to my hair." "I'm already half baker," he said. The queen lifted chin. "One more measure. Tonight we ride dragons above city. Show the people their queen ventures sky, though shadows prowl ground. Courage breeds courage." "Mems." Barristan opened mouth to object, then shut it, resigned. He had served kings who burned. He would not smother a queen who flamed for justice. Meeting adjourned. Tasks dispersed like sparks from forge. At dusk, Rhaegal and Viserion rose upon furnace winds that guttered banners along harbor. From palace terrace, thousands watched, awe-wrestling fear. Daenerys climbed Viserion's neck, with Ser Jorah's old saddle straps now tightened by new grooms. Tyrion stood below, arms folded, feigning nonchalance though heat singed eyebrows. Grey Worm and Missandei flanked Daeus beneath. Drums thundered, temple horns blared. Viserion unfurled wings, shadow swept crowd. He leapt, air exploding beneath. Rhaegal followed with deafening shriek. Together they wheeled over pyramid pinnacle. coils of steam trailing where day's heat kissed dragonfire. The city roared in one voice. Half joy, half terror. In fish markets, men dropped nets. Slave master ruins shuddered as bricks loosened. Children chased shadows across plazas. Above, Daenerys felt scale ridges beneath gloves, wind shredding hair. She tasted ashes of last night's forge. Smelled salt drifting from summer sea. From this height, every alley looked a line on a spider's web. She imagined masks glimpsing dragons and feeling their throats tighten. Let them gaze upward while she wove nets below. Rhaegal swooped nearer. Drogon's little brother grown monstrous now. Green gold eyes met hers. Understanding passed. Hunt. She pointed with free hand at the river mouth where warehouse fires flickered. Dragons banked. Below, in labyrinth of quays. The faceless man watched the aerial display through fisher net-eyed. He felt the wash of air as wings beat overhead, stirring his cloak. Flames licked faintly across scales. A reminder. Should his plan falter, dragons might finish what spores began. Yet his path remained. Bread would break. Breaths would halt. He turned, slipping into shadows under salt-black tarps, melting toward street of bakers. Ahead, ovens glowed like open maws. The royal kitchens thrummed like battleground. Tyrion supervised with hawk stare. Flour-dusting boots, beard damp with sweat. He insisted each ingredient pass across silver mirror plate, licked by dragonfire. An improvisation he'd devised. Rhaegal exhaled a plume briefly over the mirror. Enough heat to sear invisible spores, yet not blister steel. Then cooks mixed dough under unsullied guard. Grain sacks were opened one by one. Grey Worm's lieutenants sniffed, prodded, held before Maester's apprentice who sprinkled reagents onto samples. Any bag vexed by slightest oddity was tossed into iron cage, soon incinerated in palace furnaces. After 4 hours, only 3 sacks remained questionable. Tyrion eyed them. They bore dolphin seal, but twine knotted slightly looser. He slit one, inhaled. Earth note again. Out, he ordered. Burn at once. A rookie unsullied hefted bag. As he did, a puff of white dust billowed, settling on 2 other bags yet to be tested. Tyrion cursed. Separate them. Wash surfaces. Everyone out until fumes clear. The unsullied obeyed with mechanical precision, but Tyrion's heart hammered. Contamination perilously close. He realized assassin's cunning. Taint some sacks clearly enough to be discovered. Rely on cross-contamination by panic. He signaled for Rhaegal. The dragon pressed snout through courtyard arch, exhaled controlled cone across table, where residue lingered. Heat blasted, parchment curled. But mirror plate remained. Tyrion wiped brow. Missandei approached, voice tremulous. Council asks progress. Tell them we will have bread though high in smoke flavor, he quipped. She hesitated, reaching to remove stray fleck of flour from his shoulder. Her fingers brushed skin. He flinched, then laughed at himself. Apologies. Nerves sing louder than bards. She nodded. Serious. Song ends soon. Feast dawns in 12 hours. Da. He answered with a weary, then let's compose finale. Hisdar Zol Lorak sat chained in undercell of great pyramid, nose swollen from Grey Worm's fist. Rats watched from corners. His silk robe stained with river muck. His once manicured nails cracked. Outside cell bars, priestly Evenstar corpse lay shrouded, desert beetles already gnawing toes. Hisdar stared at covering cloth, fear quickening like fever. He banged fist on bars. A figure approached, the silent crossbowman, though without bow, bearing a wooden tray. He placed it inside cell. A jug of water, stale loaf. Hisdar lunged. You serve queen? The archer tilted head slightly, eyes unreadable. I serve balances. Hisdar spat. Set me free. I can still help you profit. Master of trade I was. I freed you once. The bowman said, voice flat. During pit riots, You squandered gift. He turned to leave. Hisdar clutched bar, voice cracking. Listen, assassin still at large. He comes tomorrow. Release me. I can lure him, distract. Footsteps faded. Hisdar slumped. Rats resumed vigil. Night deepened. Feast dawning nearer with each toll of harbor bells. In ash garden behind Temple of Whispers, the waif crouched before a brazier, pressing palm to coals then to hidden blade, marking steel with charcoal smear. A signal of readiness. Beside her, 4 other acolytes knelt wearing faces of beggars, merchants, sailors. The House of Black and White had indeed dispatched more than one. Their mission now diverged. The rogue assassin must die for failing contract terms. The Queen's death remained optional if it satisfied Coin's original donor. Balance must reassert. She rose, nodding. They dispersed into city night, like seeds caught by storm. Above them, a raven circled, one-eyed, feathers ragged. It cawed once, twice, then winged east toward river. No ordinary bird. Another message among many swirling webs. Feast day broke beneath bruised clouds pregnant with dry thunder. Grand plaza of broken chains thronged before sunrise. 10,000 freedmen and nobles milling between garlanded pillars. Vendors hawked roast chickpeas, citrus braised goat, honeyed figs. Banners fluttered. Black 3-headed dragon for queen. White harpy torn by spear for new order. On dais of carved basalt, long oak tables glistened with lacquer. At center, an obsidian lectern awaited Queen's speech. 10 feet behind, a raised platform with golden bowls awaited bread blessing. Grey Worm orchestrated security with ruthless geometry. Unsullied in concentric arcs, spears outward, second suns further out, swords angled to sky. City watch forming fluid patrols through crowd. Above, archers posted on terraces. Rhaegal perched upon spire of nearby temple, wings half spread, eyes scanning. Viserion circled slowly above smoke plumes from cooking pits. Tyrion stood near bread platform, dressed in simple maroon doublet, pouch of reagents at belt. He oversaw bakers set loaves upon silver trays. Each loaf bore char marks from mirror dragonfire test. They looked rustic, appealing. Musicians tuned zithers, horns. The air trembled with anticipation. Ser Barristan led Queen onto dais precisely at midday. Sun tore free of clouds, bathing silver gold hair in brilliance. Roar erupted, echoing across marble. "En Misa! Misa!" She raised palm. Noise dimmed. She spoke in low Valyrian, common, Dothraki. Each phrase tailored. Her words wove memory of chains broken, loved ones lost. Promise of harvest, pledge of vigilance. Tyrion listened for timbre of crowd, mixture of awe, grief, hope. Good. At speech close, 2 bakers advanced with master loaf, 3 feet long, crust laced with sesame. Tyrion tasted crumb earlier. Clean. Daenerys accepted ceremonial knife of lapis and steel, cut deep cross. She tore piece, lifted to lips. A hush. 1 swallow. Nothing. She smiled, broke second chunk. Offered to nearest child. A girl missing incisors. The child bit, grinned. Cheer rippled outward. Bread passed down rows, breaking each chain of suspicion crumb by crumb. The faceless man watched from second-story colonnade, disguised as itinerant scribe. Within pocket, he rubbed a ring coated inside with dried blood of basilisk. Earlier he'd planned to smear ring across loaf crust seconds before Queen cut. But dragonfire testing, unsullied watch, thwarted that. So he adapted. When Queen moved among crowd to share loaf, he would press ring to her hand, letting poison absorb through microcuts left by sword calluses. She would not feel sting until lung squeezed hours later. He descended stairs, merging with freedmen. Ahead, Daenerys stepped down dais to mingle, Grey Worm shadowing. Poker-faced, unsullied parted crowd methodically. He timed pulses between glimpses of her mantle brushing air. 8 heartbeats. 4. 2. He slipped folded parchment. Permission scroll between fingers. Legitimate cause to step forward. 15 feet. 10. D. Breath slowed. Then a disturbance. Crossbow twang high above. Not aimed at Queen. Arrow lodged in flagpole near colonnade opposite. Ricocheted with ringing note. Crowd jerked upward. Guards pivoted, eyes scanning. The assassin recognized Bowman's signature. Deliberate misshot to draw watchful eyes, break rhythm. Twice now crossbowman disrupted him. Rage simmered, yet he used chaos. He could approach under pretense of shielding Queen. He surged, parchment raised. At 5 feet, Grey Worm's spear butt barred path. Halt. Scribe with petition, the assassin said, voice tremoring with rehearsed urgency. Later, Grey Worm answered, eyes flicking upward. Assassin feigned retreat, pivoted, blending sideways. Opportunity waned, but not dead. Queen moved south toward water barrels. He circled, anticipating next intersection. Again arrow twanged, this time striking stone beside Queen's left boot, sparks flying. She started. Rhaegal roared overhead. Soldiers dragged her behind shield wall. Horns sounded alarm. In Blink Plaza, turned maelstrom. People ducked. Some fled. Crossbowmen sowed panic deliberately. Spoiling assassins' lines. Steel flashed. Second Sons wrestled a masked harpy agent, brandishing dagger. False target. Orchestrated to feed confusion. The assassin realized plan unsalvageable. He retreated into building. Climbed inner stairs to abandoned balcony. There he found crossbowmen kneeling, stringing new bolt. Sunlight back silhouette, gilding edges. Why? The assassin hissed, voice low but lethal. Crossbowman spoke without looking. Queen lives. My prophet demands. What is her life worth? Assassin's dagger whispered free. More than your coin. Less than mine. Bolt clicked into groove. Assassin advanced. Crossbowman rolled aside, loosing shaft. Arrow sliced air where assassin had been. He ducked, flung dagger. Crossbowman jerked torso sideways. Blade grazed shoulder, embedding in plaster column behind. They rose simultaneously, trading stares. Two predators meeting final calculus. Below, plaza churned. Daenerys mounted Viserion, sword to air to reassure crowd. Arrows pointless against dragon. Assassin's options collapsed. He could kill Bowman, but attempt on Queen now impossible this day. He sheathed ghost blade. Balance persists, he said, voice flat. Crossbowman smirked. Balance pays interest. Assassin vaulted parapet, dropping to awning 3 floors lower. Absorbing impact, vanishing. Crossbowman exhaled, blood soaking sleeve. He peered after fleeing shape, then down at festival. Queen circled sky, crowds calming. Chaos achieved without fatalities. Contracts intact. He broke arrow tip from column, pocketed as keepsake. He whispered to absent gods that gamblers like himself walked razored lines. One misstep could bleed fortune. He descended unseen through stairwell. Sun burnt low by time Daenerys finally dismounted in palace courtyard. Tyrion awaited with wine. Sweat streaked his brow. Grey Worm reported casualties minimal, only bruises, panic-trampled toes. City resumed heartbeat. Arrows came from north balcony, he said. No injuries intended. Warning? She asked. Or harassment? Tyrion mused. Either way, feast stands concluded alive. She drank, eyes distant. Assassin still hunts. I feel him in wind. She nodded toward Rhaegal roosting. Dragons sensed deceit. They soared before arrow flew. Tyrion smiled weakly. You may claim them as royal tasters henceforth. She chuckled. Sound weary yet alive. Barristan joined, bearing parchment sealed with Bravosi wax dot-eye. Envoys delivered this during feast. He handed to Queen. She cracked seal. Scanned. Iron Bank withdraws all financial ties to contracts harming Meereen. They promise to hunt rogue agents. She looked up. Promises weigh little next to steel, but seeds shift. Tyrion considered. Iron Bank seldom breaks oath lightly. Perhaps we turned one coin, yet other coins spin still. gray worm warned. Daenerys folded parchment. Then we will outlast them. Each failure teaches us, and I am a dutiful student. Tyrion raised goblet. To stubborn students, they drank beneath sigh of evening breeze. Far across city, the faceless man bound thigh anew, gaze fixed on pyramid's glowing amber. His lips formed silent vow. 3 failures taught lessons, yes. Final lesson would be his to deliver. He turned pages of small leather book, list of poisons, faces, times. There, between margins, he inked new stratagem. No feast, no crowds, no dragons. Just queen in bedchamber, at hour. She dismissed even her white knight. Some toxins drifted upon dream, entering through breath. Every ruler slept some night. He closed book, palms steadied. Balance waits. Above, clouds gathered bruised purple. In their folds flashed distant lightning, forks like silver daggers across sky. The many-faced god blinked perhaps, or perhaps merely observed, impartial. Either way, the game went on. And Meereen, city of scars and banners, drew breath for tomorrow's dawn, uncertain whether milk or blood would flavor her gutters, but certain that either might flow. In that uncertainty, hopes clung stubborn as ivy, and fear nested deep. And across silent courtyards watchers kept watch, waiting for the moment shadow once more stepped into flame.